All right, I'll kick it off. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Thank you for joining our Revenue Engine Masters podcast of the month, where go-to-market operations rock stars discuss how they're building future-proof go-to-market strategies, optimizing their systems, their go-to-market data, and their processes to drive efficiency, sales velocity, consistent revenue growth, and specifically how they're layering in and investing in AI to achieve their goals. And we believe that our marketing ops, sales ops, revenue ops teammates are the nucleus of the org. They're the glue that holds the integrated and unified go-to-market motion together to drive predictable revenue and scale and growth. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with a friend and trailblazer, Andy Mowat, VP of Go-to-Market Ops at Carta, an app we've all used or probably continue to use, and formerly of Box and Upwork and Culture Amp, and the co-founder and CEO of Gated, a product that I used and loved, and an advisor and investor at many companies. So that was a mouthful, Andy. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Adam. Great to be here. I've loved all of our chats and exchanges.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy, let's start by inviting our audience into your world and getting to know you a bit, and specifically where you're from and the path that led you to a successful career in go-to-market ops at great brands like Carta.
I don't think anybody starts with a career in go-to-market ops in mind, right? It's not a career that they lay out there. It's not, and frankly, it's relatively new, right? It's like Salesforce, and when they created SaaS, you started to be able to see this career. I was Princeton undergrad. I grew up here, banking in New York, private equity in London. Ended up running a company in Eastern Europe for 2 years, 500 grocery stores. So that was a pretty great adventure. I came back to Stanford for business school, went in 99, came out in 01. The world was hell. So I went to work for a wealthy family. I built them a high-end athletic club chain. And then I realized I needed to get into SaaS. And I read Tim Ferriss's book, 4 Hour Work Week. And I called Fabio, the CEO of Elance, and Gary, the CEO of Upwork. And I think I had offers from both of them, but I chose Fabio, and then they merged into Upwork. And that was kind of, I started off running BD for Fabio, and he just kept throwing me at new problems. And I kept gravitating towards the ones that were data and systems and process related. So I ran the sales team, or part of the sales team. I built out the first CRM, built out the first marketing automation. I think I sent an email to 800,000 IT professionals. That did not go down well. I think elance.com was on the spam register for about 30 days before we could send any more emails. So I learned a lot in the process. I think we were able to get off a little bit before then, but it was painful. So yeah, I think very few people in RevOps set out that way. I think they just kind of found out how they ticked, and then they were like, wow, this feels really good. And so I've run RevOps a lot, and periodically I see a problem that I want to go start.
Amazing. Yeah, you can't do that anymore, what you did at Elance. And you went and got your MBA when marketing automation didn't really exist. It was like an idea. So pretty cool. Describe, Carta's solutions. You have a big product breadth in various customer segments or ideal customer profiles and buyer personas, and then get into like your stack and how the go-to-market team's organized.
Yeah, I think everyone knows about Carta and the cap table product. That's our core product. But out of that, we've grown to run fund admin for people, right? So if you can imagine, if you are sitting there as a VC or a PE, and you've got all your portfolio companies and all happen to be on Carta anyway, we can start to automate a lot of the financial processing and information flow. So that's kind of where we're headed next. And then if you think about it, we think really strategically about all the different nodes. And now you start to map all those things together. So our stack is fairly straightforward. Try to keep it as simple as we possibly can. Salesforce, Marketo today. And I mean, I can go as deep as you want on any different area, but it's, I tend to think not about like, well, how's my stack different from somebody else's? Most of it is like, how do you implement these tools and make them more effective? Like I have a philosophy, like we're not ripping things out until we've really tried to use these tools to their full extent. Like I can't tell you how many times I've encountered stakeholders like, we got to get off of this tool. And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't even used the tool yet. Right. When I was joining Culture Amp, the current head of marketing there said, oh my God, we got to get to Marketo. We got to get to Marketo. And we were sitting like 9 million in revenue. And I'm being like, this is not going to be fun. And I joined and I said, where is she? And they were like, yep, she's been fired. Right. I was like, oh, thank God. So I really, really try to use tools before I rip them out. But when we do rip them out, we rip them out really aggressively. And we always say we're going to be your worst prospect and your best customer.
You've been there at Carta for 7, 8 months, something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What do you just talked about a 9 million ARR company that wants Marketo, which seems like just a big bloated behemoth of a tool for that a company that size. What do most new operations leaders get wrong in their first 6 months stepping in a new role?
Most operations leaders don't know how to force trade-offs and leverage resources, right? Everyone says, I want more headcount, I want more resources, but I think I see so many people failing because they just think that they can do everything. And I think a big art is being able to force trade-offs. So very early, I sat down with like head of the biz tech team, head of data team, head like there's like 3 or 4 more other areas where I just sat down and I basically said, we're going to start to force trade-offs and we're going to use those resources significantly more effectively. So I talked to a lot of like director level people that are like, oh, I'm drowning, I'm getting overwhelmed. I'm like, do you know how to make trade-offs and enforce those? And they're like, ah, no. So I think that's a key skill that I definitely like. Just how do you make decisions is a large portion. So there's like, how do you make decisions? Part A would be forcing trade-offs. I think part B is I'm here to ask the hard questions rather than make people happy, right? So one of my team brought me a redesign of the marketing form, and he's like, "Hey, here it is. It's everyone's bought off on it." And if you think about it, there are really 2 goals, right? Like form fill rate and routing error reduction. Um, and this project had us adding 5 or 6 fields, and so it made everybody happy, but it didn't accomplish the goals that were there. And I told him, I said, like, I got your back. What are the hard conversations you got to have? And he's like, okay, okay, I know that this is like, we can do better. So he came back in a week with a significantly better project. And so it's my job to push people to think differently and unbottle like their ability to execute. And so I've been doing a lot of that as well too.
That's awesome. Yeah, the salespeople want more sales actionable information. The marketing folks want less fields. And where do you find that balance? What's the trade-off? It's great.
Well, that's, I mean, great examples, right? Like they're like, we're asking people what country because that's needed for routing. I'm like, no, it's not. You could just pull it from the browser. Or we're asking people like, what stakeholders, how many stakeholders do they have? And I'm like, yeah, I get that you price on it, but you need to route on it, right? Because if you're going to be asking people a question that until they talk to you, you don't know, by definition, you're going to misroute them almost all the time, right? And so it's like, basically, we just have to force people to like think about these problems deeper. And, it was fun the other week when we sat down with one of the sales leaders. We're like, we need to convince you this is the right way to change routing. And it was like a 7-minute meeting. He's like, yep, cool. Sounds great. Like, we're good. So I think it's just bringing a lot of pattern recognition and thought to the table.
7 minute meeting, man. That's sounds like a new like 5 minute abs book.
Yeah, I can't claim it. One of the women on our SOPs team like brought the data and teed it up and yeah, those are great meetings when you're right. You just have to help the other side understand it.
Cool. Cool. So Carta, you're exiting around what, 350 million, some 350 million, something like that.
Cannot comment on that.
I cannot comment on that. What can you comment? What can you reveal to us about the the top 3 or the top 1 most interesting or complex go-to-market challenge you're working on now at Carta?
I can talk in generalities. I'm not going to talk about our go-to-market strategy, but
No, no, but
I can tell you
something
some
you're
of the things
geeking
I'm
out on,
working on. Yeah,
that
yeah.
you're geeking out on, like just in general. It can be like,
I
or some like just a concept you're geeking out on right now.
Yeah, I talked to our sales team and they said we spend 50% of our time looking through data sources to find accounts to pick up. And I said, BS. And I said, show me. And so they showed me. And I was like, yep, I guess you do. And so I said, great. If I can automate this, we can remove, we can double your productivity. And they said, yep, you can do that. So though that's one, I'm kind of rethinking enablement at the foundational level. We've got great leaders, but I've just seen what world-class enablement is. And so it's been fun, right? Like we sat down and we looked at how do we do competitive positioning and competitive intel. and we were kind of doing it in a silo. But if you look at it correctly, like there's so many different pieces of that puzzle, you need to be able to pull to do it better. So we're kind of just breaking apart everything, looking at how we can do it better in a more coordinated way. I think I got like 9 or 10 big initiatives on my plate, so it's hard to name like the top three, but yes, those are some of the ones we're working on right now.
Man, if you can, so I've caused this problem at almost every company I've been at. There's no amount of sales plays or sales initiatives that will help, your reps from bouncing around from system to system. So if you can give them 50% of their time back, that's a huge win. Um, you wrote a LinkedIn post the other month, I believe, about how go-to-market data is changing quickly. And yeah, I know, as a sales leader, it's garbage in, garbage out,
Yep.
and driving velocity starts with, great go-to-market data and integrity. Walk us through the 6 principles that you detailed about capturing, enriching, prioritizing, scoring, maintaining your great go-to-market data.
Yeah, I just pulled them up. Waterfall. I think I've lived too many times with multiple data vendors. I've had that call when I was at Culture Amp, and ironically, we had it like a month ago here, where Lucia calls you they're like, your European reps are expensing Lucia because the phone numbers are crap in Zoom Info. I'm like, I know. And so like no single source is going to get you all the right data points. And firmly, I believe I've been playing with Clay for very early on, for a side project. I've been hacking with it. So, and I've seen some of my friends kind of blow it up and be able to just get much, much higher fill rates, right? So that's like V1. I guess that's principle number one. Normalization is another one. Like, how many times do you have industry and you get it from LinkedIn and you get it from Zoom Info and you get it from Clearbit, and they're all different, right? So how do you do that? But then how do you just send the bot out to the website to decide what industry it's in, and so you don't have to dispute that? Like, I remember this whole discussion around different teams at Culture Amp wanted different types of industry definitions, and there's just so much there. So why can't you normalize that stuff? The ability to support rep entry, I think, is really important. But it's like last in the waterfall, but you need to be able to do it. The ability to kind of, when do you go out to refresh what fields, on what cadence, right? Like, I don't ever really need mobile refreshed, but I probably need employee count refreshed every 3 to 6 months. I think the ability to integrate with all your tools rather than just your CRM. And then like, that's the basics, right? Then it gets interesting, right? The ability to, like, we're scraping websites of things that people haven't even heard of yet, to be able to pull in like earlier, like there's the standard fields, right? Like job change and all that stuff, which you can
Yeah.
do. But I think a lot about like what's unique to our company that we want to go get, and where can we get it and how can we get it, right? So the ability to like send bots out to scrape that stuff is really, really powerful. Trying to think what else I can share. So yeah, it's like there's just like the world of plugging in 2 data vendors and being done is over in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy a bunch of data. It's like, how do you normalize the data and then enrich that data on a regular cadence, um, across the key attributes and the key dimensions of your ICP? What are some of the unique attributes that no data provider can give you, either from Carta or that you can just think of, and how are you solving for that in addition to normalizing signals at the same time to make them actionable for your team?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing stuff that
Hard.
I can't share, because
Sure,
it'll
like,
give competitive
it,
stuff, but I'm
yeah,
happy to.
yeah,
Um, I mean, there's the stuff that like everyone does, right? Scraping job postings, scraping websites for all that stuff. Like, that's table stakes. I think then it's like just, especially with somebody like, so every company I've worked at, Upwork, if you needed to outsource stuff, Box if you needed to store files, Culture Amp if you need to employ people, and Carta if you basically had a company. Like, we could service everybody. So that gets really fun with a data signal perspective, right? Like, I think if you're dealing with a really small TAM, it's a very different point than if you're dealing with like broad TAMs that I've generally been associated with. And so, you start to think, right? Like, how do you keep getting further and further up the decision funnel and finding people before anybody else finds them? That's a lot of what I spend my time thinking about these days.
yeah. I was going to ask you that. I don't know if you can reveal, but you have a big TAM. You have And so what decisions should an ops leader that has a big TAM, there you go, I'll anonymize it, make around the integrity of their go-to-market data, the systems decision, and that account orchestration layer to support a big TAM like you have going after VC firms and PE firms and companies and LLCs and to drive velocity.
We'll get the enrichment layer right first, right? Like, so what we've gone is we've sat down with every one of our teams. I think there's like 8 or 10 different teams attacking different things in different ways. And we've asked them, like, what are the key fields you need to be able to identify the right accounts? And so they've given those to us. And so that's the next step of great, let's go operationalize all of those. Then we kind of start to even outthink them, right? Which is like, okay, like what are they not even considered as possible? Because they're generally looking in like the pitch books and the Zoom infos and like what fields can I get from those? And then it's like we go further and start to think through like what signals can show that they're maybe buying intent or buying behavior earlier and earlier.
Yeah, that's cool. How are you talked about bots scraping websites. How do you think, or how shouldn't a VP go-to-market ops think about layering an AI to become more AI enabled, to increase velocity and efficiency gains? And like, what would be those requirements that you would check off before you're ready to even evaluate and adopt?
I mean, I'm skeptical of most AI. I mean, 95% of AI boils down to one thing. We're going to help you generate more emails, which you know that I stand firmly against in many ways.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, 95% of these people just ping you. It's some version of the same pitch, right? Like I just haven't seen it. I do a lot of advising on the side, and I
Yeah.
love startups. I haven't seen anything innovative and go to market with AI. The ability to send out a bot, evaluate a website for a specific question and come back, like that's a nice thing. Like Clay's done a really good job executing there. Scale Stack's done a great job on that as well too. Like that's good stuff. But like I'm waiting for people to blow my mind with AI. Like I posted a while back, I'm like, everything's a blend of the same basic stuff. It's so easy. It's almost tempting. It's like this fruit and everyone goes after it. And it's like to use AI with your go-to-market data to, and they all come to the same conclusion, which is to generate better emails. And that sucks. And so I think our CEO has some really deep thoughts. I don't know if he's publicized them yet, but he had some deep thoughts on AI, which is it's not about chatbots. It's about really thinking through workflows. We don't use AI to save money. We use AI to improve the experience of people. And so I just think we're 5 to 10 years away from real innovation there. And there's some nice stuff. I don't think it fundamentally, it's going to be more emails. That's all it'll be.
More emails. Yeah, I was thinking
By
that.
the way, the only emails I open right now since Gated's done is ones that use Keanu with a GIF. And it's right there on my LinkedIn profile. It says like, if you've read this far, you know how to reach me. And it's like one out of 100 reps does it. And I mark everyone else as spam. And like, you don't need to AI me. I'm not going to read it. You just need to personalize it. And so when AI bots figure out how to go scrape my LinkedIn and then send me a personalized one, then they've won. But until they can do that, I'd rather reps send emails. At the
Yeah.
same time, I think the Reggie CEO, Shri, had really good vision. He's like, there's only two things AI won't eventually automate. One is the email, one is the reply, and the other one is the call. And I tend to agree with him, right? So it's kind of like self-driving. It's like Google went straight to stage 5 or 4 and felt the pain, whereas Tesla's trying to kind of go in increments. And so I think you kind of have to be willing to just kind of throw caution to the wind and fully automate. But this half automation is really tough.
Tell the audience about Gated, the catalyst for Gated, what Gated is, and then so they get the context about your aversion to emails, which I can't stand as well. So, and I'm a salesman.
Gated came from my frustration running RevOps at a unicorn culture amp where everyone would blow me up for everything under the sun. And I just got so annoyed at one point, I just put in the email and said, hey, thanks, man. I'm not going to read your email unless you Venmo me 10 cents. And like people started paying. And then I just kept innovating on that. Then I started to throw in like, if you Venmo me $2 to support wounded warriors, and people just kept paying and paying. And then some guy, he's like, hey, here's $50 because I see you've got like 5 ops positions you're trying to fill. And then
Yeah.
we became friends. That was Aaron at Pavilion, and we became good friends off of that. And so then I kind of hacked it. But effectively, the final conclusion with Gated was if you got an email from somebody that was not in your relationship graph that we were able to sense from all of your email, we would take that email out of your inbox, move it to the side, send people notes saying, hey, I don't know you. Here's my nonprofit. If you donate $2, your email will make it to my inbox. It sounded a little schwarmy, but what we ended up finding was reps paid, sales reps paid, and the reply rate to those donations was 53%, right? Like typical cold email reply rates are 1 or 2%. So we were able to 25 to 40x the reply rate. And I think it worked. It really did. It was more niche than we thought on the user side. So we filtered a couple billion emails. We shook email to its core. It's funny, like Gated added like 20 followers in the last week. I still get the LinkedIn updates. So it's fun. It was a lot of fun. I learned a ton. And I also got to be a Carta customer in the process.
There you go. Cool. Where I use Perplexity, as my browser, I can semantically search. That is useful for me. That saves me time. It has transparency built in. It's not a black box LLM. So where I find, like some incremental efficiency gains for my team, you talked about, hey, you have 50 steps. I'm going to reduce this by half, and give you 50% of your time back. That's great. That right there can easily affect, the denominator in the sales velocity formula, sales
Yep.
cycle, right? Give them time back.
Yeah.
So like, when you think about some of the functionality like Notion, I'm going to go query a wiki and it's going to generate an answer with some transparency. Are there any ways you're helping your reps become enabled so that you don't have to do a racy audit on a process and then automate? Or is there any way you're applying AI for just like thinking about a better buyer journey for the buyer?
Well, yeah, that was like 5 or 6 questions in one, which was good. Let's see. I'd
Exactly.
say
Compounded question on compounded
no,
question.
I riffed on so
Yeah.
Perplexity is cool. I use it as well.
Yeah.
I think the ability to summarize knowledge is good. Um, the I saw a great post the other day, which was basically the guy said something to the effect of, "I'm no longer using AI to generate emails. I'm using it to generate images." And I think for me, images is one of the most powerful things there. I use AI a ton for images. Um, I'm a big believer in like, so then you talked about like curated knowledge or something like that. And I'm a big believer that you still have to curate knowledge, right? Like it's no matter what, uh, AI it'll get you like 80 or 90% of the way there. I think so there's that. I think a lot of people have asked me about AI for stopping email, and I can rant on that one for a while. But at a fundamental level, the context you need to make the decisions is not in the email, right? Like it may be on LinkedIn, it may be in my mind, it may be in different places. I actually ran a company that outsourced 300 virtual assistants for salespeople, and people would constantly ask me to like use AI, use the assistants to to filter their email, and we never could. Right. And somebody described AI as your smartest intern, and I had 300 of these people, and I couldn't train on that. And then you asked me, how am I using AI to improve the buyer journey? I think we start with support and implementation. Those are areas where they're highly ticketed, highly structured, and you're able to score those things and get feedback back on those. So I think the ability to, ticket deflection's been around for a long time, to be able to improve that, to be able to improve ticket routing, and to be able to understand buyer sentiment are kind of low hanging fruit that we've been spending a lot of time on.
Right on. Yep. You remembered all my questions.
I got a pad of paper right here.
And it's the end of our day here. Wrap this up here. Let's wrap this up. I'd like, I'm a director of ops, RevOps. I have a big TAM. It's complex. I get overwhelmed. I'm trying to learn how to manage trade-offs earlier on in my career. Give me some actionable advice about what I need to do to go make immediate impact on, go-to-market effectiveness and velocity, in my first, 6 months.
Trade-offs. I've got a lot of articles on my LinkedIn around like
Yeah.
RevOps handbook, how to enforce trade-offs. I mean, if you're running one there, like first, I always ask, like, are you reporting to somebody you can easily manage up to? And they understand the power of RevOps and they can give you a cover at the right time. If you're not, go find your next job. Otherwise, you'll struggle at it for a long time. Is your company growing? If it's not, go find the next one. But if those things are in place, then you better be damn good at forcing trade-offs. I think, to me, I remember we were sitting at one company and the head of account management was just grinding on our team. He wasn't happy. You know, the person that was running it for me would just say yes. They'd be like, yeah, we got that, we got that, we got that. And that sounds great. But until it doesn't, right? And so then I sat in on that meeting, and like after 2 or 3 meetings, I said, great, like here's where I think that thing lies. It's like seventh or eighth on the list. Here's the things above it. Like, do you disagree? He said, no. We did that for 4 or 5 weeks. And at the end of 4 or 5 weeks, he said, Andy needs more headcount. Can I please give him one of my headcount? Right. So I think that I hear a lot of people complain. I had this CCO at Box. He said, you're never going to get any more headcount props until the business gives it to you. I was like, great. Like, that's how I learned how to like force trade-offs. I'm like, I guess I need to force trade-offs on this stuff. I had my team, they were training, they were in their nighttime training APAC. And then in the mornings, they were training Europe. But I had an agreement with the head of finance that they weren't supposed to, that they were supposed to resource, but they kept doing it. And finally, I'm like, just say no, right? And it was uncomfortable, but when they say no, it forces the right organizational decisions that eventually they will resource somebody in APAC and in Europe, and then they can be dotted line to us, and then we can help make sure that's there. And so it's just like, if you don't say no, organizations don't make the right decisions. Roles and responsibilities are another thing. Just like sit down and clarify really early, like, you do this, I do this. If you've lost a person and you want to kick it to me, like, okay, but I'm still going to hold you accountable for it. And so like I've recut all the roles and responsibilities, and I'm very good at saying, like, we say not no, but we say here it is, and here's the priority, and here's what's above it. I'm always happy to sit down with my COO and recut that. But like, I'm going to work on the most important things, and we're going to run really hard at those things. And I think a lot of people in RevOps have a mentality of like, yes, I'm here to help. And that's great until you get run over by a truck.
I love it. You know, in the beginning, I do believe the RevOps function, sales ops, RevOps, whatever you're called in the org, is the glue, the nucleus of the go-to-market team. But you have to say no. I love it when my RevOps partner, Eric Welsh, whom you know, tells me
Yeah,
no.
Eric's
Because
great.
I loathe you, Eric. But you know, tell me why. Cool. Tell me no in a different way. Tell me no in a different way now. You know, and then we get to root cause. What's the art of the possible? You know, and let me quantify why I need it. So I love when somebody starts and tells me no. It's a challenge. Right on, Andy. Appreciate your time today. I learned a lot about your principles and how you think about go-to-market data and normalizing it and enriching it and scoring it and getting creative with getting, you know, enriching and scoring your go-to-market data with key attributes that are really difficult to find, and philosophy on emails and no and trade-offs. So it was a learning experience for me, and I hope you had a good time too.
Absolutely. Great questions. I look forward to our next chat.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll link out to all your articles if you want to send me a list. I have several of them that I've been a fan of and followed. So would love to link out to those and let our audience be able to go do their own research and try to find a way to contact you via email.
Sweet. The RevOps ones all tend to link together. So if you just link to the RevOps handbook, they all will. I also write a lot on just career and how people think about their career, and how you invest in people. And those tend not to link out as much, but they're good ones too.
Those are the great ones too, like Cliff Simon, you know, from Carabiner Group. He just said, you know, the future belongs to the helpful. And so I really appreciate you. And yeah, I'm grateful for folks like you that give back and talk about their career openly and candidly. So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
yeah, cool. Right on, man. I'll stop recording here. Cool. Cool, Andy.